God values hard work more than he values results. In the spiritual life, the most important value is service, and service to another person or service to God. And the way we measure service is when you're doing something that is beyond what comes easy and comfortable to you. Because when you're only behaving in a way that is natural and easy for you, then you're not really pushing yourself to serve another. You're just doing that which you can conform with naturally. So the defining factor of a spiritual value in a spiritual life is a life lived with service. And service means putting in an effort beyond what would become easy to you. No matter the result, it's irrelevant. Results are important, but what's more important is how you got there. Not so much what you accomplished, but how and why did you accomplish it? What was the motivation and what was the intention? So we discussed yesterday, there are two kinds of people. There's the person who serves God or who doesn't serve God. Now, we weren't talking about the wicked person. We're not talking about somebody who actually sins. We're talking about someone who's always doing the right thing, like the Benoni, who's always performing well. But even though one performs the right thing all the time, the question is it a life of service or not? Is it a life of hard work or not? So the Talmud has a fascinating description about this. And the Talmud says, who is a person that lives a life that's not a life of service? Somebody who studies and reviews their Torah learning 100 times. Who is a person that lives a life of service? Somebody that studies and reviews their Torah study 101 times. Now, this is an example with regards to Torah study, but it can apply to any other mitzvah or good deed. 100 times, 101 times, you are a hard worker. You are a servant of God. How does that one time change so much? I mean, 100 times is a lot. It takes a lot of work also. Why would one time change the whole thing? So the explanation is that in those days, it was fairly normal and typical for people to review the learning 100 times. That's in fact the recommendation of the Talmud, and it should apply to anybody engaging in any kind of study. If you really want to know it and remember it, you have to review your studies 100 times. That is the norm. So if somebody did that, they were doing what everybody was doing. They were doing what's expected. They were doing what's considered regular and routine. When somebody learned one more time than 100 times, you've gone out of the box. You've gone out of your comfort zone. You've done something completely irregular. You've had to work hard and muster strength and willpower to achieve that one time, even though it's just one extra time, but that one extra time is more valuable than the 100 times beforehand. Similar to the analogy that we brought yesterday with regards to the cab drivers in the time of the Talmud, the donkey drivers. So it was typical for them to travel up to 10 miles or 10 measurements of distance a day. And that would cost 1 coin. If you ask the driver to travel 11 miles, he charged you 2 coins, double the amount of money just for 1 extra mile. And the answer is that 1 extra mile requires so much effort and totally out of the routine and not what we normally service, that it's as hard as the original typical 10 miles, and therefore it's double the price. So that is the calling of all of us. Not so much of how much you need to accomplish. Everybody's got a different potential, different measures. Think about that. The more important concern or interest that God has, and we should be investing in life, is, are we doing only that which comes natural and normal to us? You know, some people are naturally gifted. We learned about this earlier. Maybe they have a very docile kind of temperament, and doing good deeds and studying Torah and dedicating their time towards activities that are meaningful and valuable in the eyes of the Torah, it doesn't come as a challenge to them. So whereas someone else, it comes as a great challenge. Now, just because one person, therefore, is engaging in mitzvot and Torah study, and another person is not necessarily indicative that one's service is more valuable than another. They may they may both just be doing that which comes easy to them. So the ultimate litmus test is if somebody's working to achieve and to strive beyond what is comfortable for them. And for every person, that's in a different level. However, that is your truth that you need to discover. When you will work to do not just which comes easy and natural to you, but to inspire your godly soul. You walk through your mind to truly understand and contemplate on the truths of the Torah and of life. And that will spill over to arouse your heart with holy feelings and positive feelings, to be attracted to doing good things and be repelled away from doing that which is negative and harmful. And ultimately, you will be doing something that you had to make an effort in order to achieve that. That's considered the avodah tamah. That's considered the true service of a Benoni and someone who is actually serving God. The struggle is really, really valuable. Sometimes we think, I don't want to have a struggle. I want to be able to do that something comfortably. But if you're doing it comfortably and you're not having the struggle, it's questionable. Who are you really serving? So this is a really foundational teaching of the Tanya, teaching us that the effort is more valuable, more important to focus on than the actual results. And that concludes the chapter 15. And in light of that, and because today is the yahrtzeit of the author of the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, I want to share with you a story that highlights how this theme was really the theme of the Alter Rebbe's teachings and his leadership. One morning, the Alter Rebbe was approached by his son, Reb Dov Ber, and the son looked very distressed. He was crying. And his father asked him, "What's wrong?" And the son answered, "I had a very weird dream, a disturbing dream last night." His father said, "What was the dream?" He said, "In my dream, I saw three people. I saw a short person. Then I saw a tall person with one leg was thicker than the other and he was limping. And then I saw you," he tells his father. "And the three of you were walking along a river. And at that place where you were, the stream was running quickly, but calmly. There were no waves. There was no violent, it was just a very calm river. And the short person turns to the taller person and instructed him to step on the wooden plank that was in the water. And he steps on the wooden plank like a surfboard. But even though the waters were not violent, nonetheless, he kept sinking, falling under the water, and then coming back up, sinking, and then coming back up. And then they continued on their journey. Further down the stream, they arrived at a place where the river was very violent, a lot of waves. It was, rough waters. And then the short person turns to you, he tells his father, the Alter Rebbe, and instructed you to stand on the wooden plank on the surfboard in the water, which you did. And no matter how raging the waves were, you stayed on top of the water all the time." And that was the end of the dream. What does it mean? So the Alter Rebbe tells his son, "Go pray." It was first thing in the morning. When you finish praying, come back and I'll explain to you the dream. When he came back, the Alter Rebbe explained to him, "The short person that you saw in that dream was the Baal Shem Tov. The tall person, the limp, was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid of Mezrich. And then there was me. And what you saw in the dream was as follows. The Baal Shem Tov, who was the founder of Hasidism, turned to his successor, the Mezrich Maggid, and told him, 'You and many of your students and successors, your work is here in the calm river. Your work is to deal with people. Life for them is calm, is without too much struggle. They're holy, they're righteous, they're naturally good. Things come easy to them. And that's the kind of Torah you need to be teaching and the people you need to be inspiring. And yes, they're not perfect people. And yes, sometimes they'll sink in the water and come back up. But life in general is an easier journey for them.' However, the Baal Shem Tov, the short person, turns to the Alter Rebbe, which was the successor of the Maggid, and told him, 'Your service, your mission in life is to teach and inspire people who their lives are like raging waters. Their lives are constantly in battle and struggling between good and bad, the two different voices within them, the godly soul, the animal soul. And life is always going to be rough and difficult. Nonetheless, through your teachings and through your inspiration and your leadership, you will be able to teach and communicate and empower people that no matter the struggle and no matter the difficulty they're going through, they'll always be able to stay afloat above the water.' That defined the Alter Rebbe's mission for him, that dream, and that defines the Tanya, and that defines a lot of the Chabad Hasidic works. which were not dedicated to communicating, educating, inspiring those who are the natural, gifted, tzaddikim, righteous, holy people, which are very few. But it was dedicated to address the masses, those of us who deal with our struggles and our battles, those of us that have healthy, godly souls, but healthy animal souls also. And how do we conquer? And how do we master? And how do we ensure that we're able to live up to our potential and live up to our purpose? We're already discovering in these 15 chapters of the Tanya how to have the tools and the empowerment to be able to achieve and succeed in our spiritual journeys in life. So in the merits of the Bala yahrtzeit, in the author's yahrtzeit, which is today, may we all be blessed that through our study and through our hard work, may we succeed in our missions, succeed in our journeys, discover our full potential, and be the best that we can be. God bless you.